November 23rd, 2020 City Council meeting to order. Because of COVID-19 restrictions, our meeting tonight is being held virtually via Zoom. Public comments for this meeting were accepted in advance by mail and email. These comments will be read into the public record shortly. If you would like to submit a public comment for our next meeting, please visit our website at www.merriam.org and follow the directions listed there. This is our customary reminder to the council to be conscientious of others and to speak slowly and clearly when you speak, and state your name prior to speaking. If I need to confirm something that may have been difficult to hear, I will ask for clarification. The format for council considerations on items tonight will be staff presentations, and then I will have an open time for council to ask questions, and we'll please hold questions until the end of the staff presentation. If you have a question when I ask for them, please physically raise your hand so that I can see you on the video. And I think right now I'm pretty much able to see all of you at the same time, so that works out pretty well. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Sism.
Here.
Councilmember DeBold.
Here.
Councilmember Hands.
Here.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Here.
Councilmember Knapp.
Here.
Councilmember Neal.
Here.
Councilmember Pape.
Here.
Councilmember Silvers.
Here.
Councilmember Yodrich. Absent.
Very good. We have time reserved in the meeting for a public comment. And Julie, would you please read any public comments that were submitted in advance into the record?
Yes, Mayor, we have 3 public comments tonight. The first one is from Paul Osgood. He lives at 9965 Edelweiss Circle. Says, my name is Paul Osgood. My husband, Jerry Cundiff, and I have lived at 9965 Edelweiss Circle for over 40 years. We are retired teachers. We are in the unit next to the Streamwood Trail, right by the small waterfall. I walk the trail often. I just want to thank you for having one of the nicest trails in Kansas City. I especially thank Jim McDonald and his crew for their great maintenance. I really like the wildflower plantings that were just planted by the trail. I am starting a wildflower garden in the woods and the meadow next to our home. It has been a great project during this pandemic. We sit out on our patio in the morning and the evening. Many times we can see the deer grazing in the meadow. I just want you to know that all of your work is greatly appreciated. My second thing to mention is that many times we have homeless people that stop in the woods next to the trail. I see them and they have never bothered me. I am not upset about the homeless there. I am upset that we have homeless that need a place to stop. A young man stopped for 3 nights a few weeks ago. I stopped and talked with him and gave him some water. I asked him where he was going. He said he was homeless and just wandering. I told him of some places he could go for shelter. He left after 3 days. I don't know if he went to a shelter or just continued his wandering. My prayer is that he found a safe, warm place where people care for him. Jerry and I worked with Good Samaritan Project in the 80s and 90s to help people that had HIV/AIDS. At that time, it was a death sentence. Many of the people we worked with were young gay men that had been turned out onto the streets by their families because they were gay. Our job was to help them find shelter, food, medicine, and a kind voice. I tell this story to say there are many reasons for being homeless. Not everyone is lazy or a drug user. Is there any way we can find a way to help these people find the services they need rather than just asking them to move on? Maybe this is happening already and I just don't know about it. Thank you for this opportunity. Jerry and I are proud to call Merriam our home. And then the next two, I'm going to switch to get them from the email. This one is from Randy Stringer. Dear council members, my name is Randy Stringer. I live in Shawnee. I commute through Merriam several times every day. It is frustrating to myself and others that I have talked to about the panhandlers in the streets and medians of Merriam. Not only is this dangerous when they cross 2 lanes of stopped traffic to collect $1 and the light is green, but it is also congested the traffic and has caused myself and others to miss the light. Other cities I have been through are posting ordinance violation signs on the posts in the median next to where the beggars stand. I give freely to the fire department and police fundraisers in town, but when I see a man or woman wearing brand new jeans, carrying a brand new backpack and asking for money, it is very irritating. I wish the city council would pass the ordinance to post the signs and keep these people out of the main streets. As I'm sure you are aware, many of these folks are not homeless or veterans. They do this as a business and at the very least should have a business license and be taxed. It is also very degrading to the city itself to allow panhandling, sometimes 2 or 3 per intersection, like the City of Independence. It is very aggravating to sit at a stoplight and have to look this guy in the eye knowing full well he is capable of holding a real job while they hold this guilt trip cardboard sign in my face several times a day. I'm not sure why, but we don't see this in Shawnee, Lenexa, or Overland Park. I know the police have better things to do than running these people off, and signs don't always help. But I feel you need to start somewhere. Thank you, Randy. Okay. Then I have one more from Billy Crone. Sorry. Hold on just a second. Having an issue here. There we go. Okay. Billy Crone, 6633 Wed Street. Says, I reviewed the last council meeting and I think I heard the low number of live viewers implied citizen disinterest in city council meetings, but I disagree. I believe that reduced attendance can be more attributed to procedures changed by government than by citizen disinterest in their government. You all can recall my attendance record prior to COVID, so here's a sincere viewpoint from one citizen whom you know has tried very hard to stay involved. It's not easy. Live attendance since COVID has been disincentivized by Zoom, allowing no citizen feedback and public comment having to be submitted in writing, following specific guidelines before the meeting even begins, which has been more limited every few months. Because the public is muted during the meetings by limitations in the name of COVID, the biggest difference between live and watching afterwards to neighbors like me is we have to move our schedule around to watch it live, or if we can watch on our own schedule. After the 6 p.m. cutoff, the result of a given meeting will be the same either way. I also suspect viewership of the archived recordings has been artificially, hold on, I can't see this. I apologize, I cannot get this thing to scroll right. has been artificially low in recent months, with meetings not always getting posted the morning after the meeting. I do genuinely appreciate all and any work that staff has done to keep up public engagement during COVID, though. A delayed video is definitely better than the complete absence of official meeting videos as before COVID. I think it's a change worth noting that since we started using Zoom, staff has a list of the names of people watching the meeting live and knows if those people are citizens or not, which happened to last meeting. Before COVID, that ability did not exist. I don't like that change. I think there is value, in fact, in government not knowing who is watching a public meeting. Imagine if people had to wear name tags and provide a passcode to get in the door of City Hall last year to attend the City Council meeting. Even if that passcode was published in the agenda and website, it wouldn't be well received. I do believe the passcode, which is required to view live today, is merely an unintentional technical requirement from Zoom. But it seems to me like a hurdle to live attendance worth avoiding in our new AV system. It certainly feels obvious to me to expect less attendance if anyone who doesn't have a code is literally locked out and anyone who does is identified. In closing, we've made some improvements and I thank you for working to make more, because it's just not as been open of a meeting to me since COVID began. And that was our last public comment.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie. We will move to our consent agenda. All items listed under the heading are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless one of the council members requests, in which case that item is removed from the consent agenda and considered separate. We have 7 items this evening, which is kind of a lengthy number for our consent agenda. They're all important and we're perfectly willing to discuss any of them individually should anyone have that desire. Mr. Neal.
I'd like to discuss the license plate cameras.
I believe that's item number 6. So we'll remove number 6 from the list and the other requests. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion of the items remaining in a second. Bob Pape.
Yeah, Mayor, I would move that the council approve consent agenda items 1 through 5 and number 7.
1 through 5 and 7. A second, Mr. Silvers, your mute's on. There you go.
I'd like to second that.
Motion's made and seconded. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember DeVold.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Knapp.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Pape.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Very good. Item number 6, which is remaining pulled off the consent agenda, is consider approval of the purchase of 5 license plate reader cameras. Mr. Neal, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, a couple of things. One of the things that the National League of Cities is pushing for is essentially that data acquired by cities about individuals be safeguarded in some manner. Particularly, one of the areas of concern is the ownership and the potential reuse of the data by the vendors who are providing these services. And as a matter of fact, the resolution was passed about this just last few days. I know that I've asked about it before. The problem that I see with I think that's absolutely a good idea as far as evidentiary and investigation techniques for the police department to be able to do that in areas where there have been some problems. It's going to generate a lot of data about people's comings and goings who are not, not criminals, not doing anything wrong, and location data and that sort of thing is very valuable to third parties and could be misused. And so I was wondering if we have what we know about the contract with the vendor and what protections there are so that this, location data for, people who are passing through there is not misused.
Chief, you have an answer for that?
I do. Good evening, Council, Mayor. Just so you know, there is no vendor per se. The vendor that's listed on the information that's for the installation and configuration of the cameras. The software that we use to run the camera, we actually purchased and have a maintenance agreement on. However, the data is ours. We store the data on our servers. It is not shared with anybody outside of law enforcement. It can only be shared for investigative purposes. The data is only kept for 180 days and then it is deleted. So the data stays on our servers. It's behind our firewalls. It is not sold. It's not bargained. It's not given to anybody outside of law enforcement, and it never will be.
One follow-up would, how does this software work? Because you're doing some sort of a lookup, I assume, from the plate. We download what's called a hot file from NCIC, which is a National Crime Index computer. That hot file is uploaded on a routine basis daily. I don't know what the recycle rate on that is. And so what happens is that download is downloaded to the server that houses the software. And then it is anytime a camera picks up a license plate, it compares that license plate to that hot list. And if there's a tag that matches that hot list, it is given an indication to the officers on their computers in their cars that a stolen car, for example, just went through that intersection. They do not get registration information. It's only cars that are on the hot list. That's the only information they get. So it's not just recording all vehicles that go through there, just flags the ones that are hot listed. Is that what you're saying? No, it will take a photograph of every car that goes through there. It only gives us an indication or a notification if one hits the hot list, but there is a record of that car. But that record's only good for 180 days. Our server's deleted after 180 days. We feel any investigative information that we get would be stale after 180 days, so there's no reason to keep it. And we're not trying to build a database of people's movements. We're just trying to use it to catch crimes in progress or to solve crimes that recently occurred. So that's why we have a 180-day window. That sounds good, and I appreciate the information and the answer, because that sounds like we're honoring the spirit of protecting the privacy of our residents, and I appreciate that. Absolutely, I'm 100% for that. I am very leery of building databases. So as long as I'm chief, we're not going to be building databases for the sure sake of building databases. Thank you.
Any other questions about item number 6? Okay, I'll entertain a motion, a second for that item. Bob Pape.
Mayor, I'd move the council approve consent agenda item number 6.
And Chris Hands.
And I'll second it.
Motion made and second, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Knapp.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Pape.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Before I cast my vote, I just want to make sure that people don't misconstrue my vote. This is not an attempt on my part to defund the police. But I will be voting no on this one.
Councilmember DeVold.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move to Mayor's report. Before I forget, I want to thank everybody or wish everybody happy Thanksgiving coming up. Hopefully, I don't know if we're ever going to see normalcy, but we're going to get through this holiday, and I hope you have some opportunities to enjoy it. I was going to say that the first of the meeting, but I forgot. We have first item is confirmation of the appointment of Thomas Penland as our city prosecutor. Meredith, are there any updates on this item?
No, they're not. I'll just share with council that our current prosecutor needed to resign for personal reasons. And so we posted this position for about a month. We received 5 applications for it. And then a panel consisting of Mayor Sissom, Chief McLaughlin, City Attorney Ryan Dink, our the judge, Sheila, the court administrator, and myself. We got together and reviewed those applications, went through an interview panel that HR participated in, and ultimately Thomas Penland is the recommendation for this position. It is a mayoral appointment, and it is for a period of 2 years. This is a little off our normal appointment cycle. So this appointment will bring the appointment of Thomas Penland into the same schedule that we have for everybody else who has this type of position. It's a contract position. It is not a city employee. So I'm happy to answer any questions about him or the process.
Chris?
Yeah. Mine is not an objection to anything about Mr. Penland. I'm just curious because we already have a date in the contract, but he hasn't really started yet, right? I mean the letter of understanding, sorry.
Yeah, no, he has not started yet. That should have been blank. So we'll fix that on the one that gets put in.
Okay, thanks.
Jason Silvers?
Yes, this is Councilman Silvers. I had a lengthy conversation with this city manager today, and Chris, and I just wanted to, my questions to him was asking if there was a way that we could see the prosecutor's record for convictions versus non-convictions, which was not available to us, at least in the time frame from when we got the packet to today. But because I wouldn't vote for a judge or a sheriff or a politician without being able to research their record, I'm going to have to abstain from this vote.
Okay. I was on the panel. Just for the record, I've never, prior to this, met Mr. Penland or any of the individuals who were applying. I will say that I was impressed with all of them. They were all very good candidates, and we struggled with trying to choose which one we thought was best. Much of the weight of the selection was placed, I think, on the judge and our clerk because they work with them, and they've also have the ability to find out information about people as they're in the business. So I was pretty happy that we got this opportunity. Let's see, if there are any other questions, I'll entertain a motion in a second. Mr. Silvers?
I would like to say that I appreciate all the work that you all have put in to this. I would like to clarify why I feel like they need to abstain. What qualifies a prosecutor as being a good prosecutor is convictions, but that also can lead to, in my mind, maybe not exactly a fair, I don't know how to put this exactly, but if a prosecutor is going mainly for convictions instead of doing what's best for the people that they're prosecuting. I think it creates conflicts of interest. Now, I know nothing about TC Penland, so I'm not saying that he has done anything right or wrong. I just haven't had the ability to look at his record to know or make an opinion for myself. So probably too much of a clarification, but that's why I have to abstain.
Okay. Well, that's certainly, you're right, as a councilperson. Mr. Hands.
I was going to make a motion.
Okay, please do.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council confirm the appointment of Thomas Penland as city prosecutor.
We have a motion to have a second. Bob Pape.
I'll second that, Mayor.
A motion, a second, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Knapp.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
I'm going to vote yes. I also feel like some of these positions sometimes, you know, we're completely relying on a staff process or a small group process, which I accept that as being a good judgment. But I also feel that there are maybe some times where if we got the information this was coming up a little sooner, maybe we'd be able to do a little bit of research and feel better about our decisions. This is a position that affects a lot of people potentially. So I'm going to vote yes, but with that caveat.
Councilmember Pape.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
I abstain.
Councilmember DeBold.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. We're going to move to item number 2, is consider approval of the ETC Citizen and Business Survey Tools. Meredith, are there any updates on this item?
Yes, good evening. So as I discussed during the last meeting, we are in the process of approving the survey tools for our upcoming citizen and business surveys. I have included updated versions of those drafts in your packet for consideration. These do not need to be approved tonight, but they certainly can be if you all are ready to do that. We do need to approve them at the next meeting. That is our deadline. So my hope tonight is that we can have a conversation about the custom questions that were added. Let's see, it's on page 32 of your packet, questions 16 and 17 of the community citizen survey. So I'd like to get feedback on those this evening and then get any other feedback or answer any other questions that you all have so we can be prepared to approve these at the next meeting at the latest.
Okay. Hopefully everyone has the opportunity to look back on those items. Should we start on 16? Chris Hands?
I would just say that I thought the way 16 and 17 were presented, I really liked that. Liked that we were asking them how they felt about them, and then we were asking them to rank them in their priority order. I like that. I do have a question about the business one, if you want to wait on that, or
I can go back and forth between the two, it's fine.
I can go back and forth too.
Great.
On question number 29, which was the last page of that.
Yes.
As I read through all of those choices, I was just, it didn't seem to me like we were being very obvious about, like, where would somebody who does auto service, how are they going to, what category are they going to put that in? It seems like we need to be much more clear and direct about that, especially since we have so many in that category. There are probably other categories that I just didn't think of, but that one really quickly came to mind.
No, thank you. That's good feedback. I will. So this is what for the standard, a standard question from ETC, but I will get some clarification on that.
Yeah, I can see where we need that.
Yep.
One of the things, before we get any other comments, I might mention, when we met over this at the meeting that I have with the city administrator and council president, we agreed that it's a good idea to have questions like this in there, just because in some cases we get the opportunity to test the waters, so to speak, to determine whether or not an issue is worthy of further consideration, or if it's going to create, problems. And so there's no indication if a person and citizen were to see one of the questions on this list that they should necessarily get overly concerned about that process going forward. There's no, we're just, these have been kind of some issues discussed, and I know the council's struggled over whether or not they're, it would be a good thing to get into. And this is just a way for us to kind of do our planning in kind of a less formal way, rather than bringing it up and finding it out the hard way. And we've done that in the past a couple times. And so that's kind of why we picked some of these. But I think I'm pretty anxious to see what some of the feedback is from citizens on some of these items, because I have no idea. Any other questions about 16 or 17? Mr. Pape.
Yeah, Mayor. On question 16, one of the concerns, I think all of the questions are good, and I applaud the ones that we picked. But Merriam, question 4 specifically, Merriam should provide public incentives of 10 to 20 million dollars to bring a grocery store to Merriam. I think that's kind of a leading question in how we phrased that, in the sense that I think there are a lot of people that have came to me and are very interested in getting a grocery store. But I think if you went back to any one of those individuals and said, look, yeah, we can get you one, but it's going to cost somewhere between 10 or 15 and 20 million dollars for us to incentivize, I think they're all going to say, oh, no, I don't want one. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't necessarily, want to incentivize getting one for, say, $100,000 or something, but not 15 to 20 million. So I think throwing that in as a 15 to 20 million is if you base your answer basically strictly on a dollar figure like that, I think you're going to get all no's. But if it was some other figure, then the possibility might exist that, oh yeah, I'm all in for incentivizing $100,000 to a grocery store to move into Merriam. So if we could tweak that somehow, where we could maybe break that into 0 to 100,000, 100,000 to 500,000, 500,000 to 5 million. I don't know how you do that, but if it's something that we could, when are they interested and when are they not interested, I think would be more pertinent a question to ask. That's my thought.
Yeah, so I did have, Bob did ask me that question before this meeting, and I did a little bit of digging between my conversation with him and this meeting. I think a challenge that exists that I think we need to think through as part of this conversation is, in order to get a grocery store, it will have to come as part of a development package, which means that it can't come, we couldn't incentivize it for just $100,000 or just $1 million and get a grocery store. It would need to be part of a larger package. And so I think from staff's perspective, it might, if we have concerns about that question, maybe it's better to remove it completely than to get information that won't actually let us move forward with that project. So I think there's an opportunity for council to discuss how you all would like to move forward with that question.
Mr. Neal, do you want to add to that, or do you have something separate?
Actually, yeah, I was wanting to talk about this one too. I would suggest that we just leave the dollar amount out because the explanation is too complicated. I still think the question would be good. Just Merriam should provide public incentives to bring a grocery store to Merriam, or public, financial incentives or something like that. And then depending upon the response, then we can then do some further analysis and then to figure out what that level is. But I agree, I would not want to put a specific amount in there without some explanation, because it seems too much. It's a poor question in that respect as it sits right now. And I do have a question on the business side when we get to that.
Bruce, did you want to talk about this item specifically?
Yes, yes.
We'll get back to you, Mr. Neal.
This is one of those topics that's far too complex for one question. Mm-hmm. And if we take the huge dollar amount off, then we should say something like use your tax money or something that will be very personal to the person who's answering the question. Because I think if you just read public incentives, you don't understand or you don't fully grasp that it's your money, that it's your tax money that will be involved, that's going on the line for one business. Mm-hmm. And then, I personally would be opposed to having public incentives for one store. It just doesn't seem like free enterprise to me. So I don't know. I think anybody says we should have a grocery store, that is like world hunger. Of course we should have a grocery store. It's, are you willing to pay for it is the question. I don't know how you put that into a 1 or 2 sentence short question.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the challenge. And I think Councilmember Neal hit the nail on the head that I think as we've gotten into this topic, it may be too lengthy of an explanation needed to summarize it and get useful data from this question, on this survey right now.
Mm-hmm. Scott, did you want to add to this question?
Yeah, just real quick, Scott Diebold. Again, I think from what we've seen, social media feedback, grocery store is something people want. So I think if you just left that question without any dollar value, that's going to be a plus. So is it really worth putting it in the survey? Because the comment made by Meredith that we're going to have to, if it's going to be part of a development, it's going to have to be part of an incentive package. And that's those are 2 totally different questions. And there's going to be 2 totally different feelings about those. And again, so, really I guess my thought is worth having it in there. I mean, is there something else we could put in there? I know we had a long discussion last meeting, but that's kind of my thought.
Mr. Silvers.
I just needed some clarification based on Bruce's question. If any business moves into a TIF district, are they in a way being incentivized to move in there because they are receiving monies for moving into a certain district?
Only if they get an incentive package from the city. Just moving into the district doesn't give them an incentive.
And what we're talking about here, and I certainly don't claim to be an expert in this. This is a very complicated issue, and you're absolutely right. So we've gotten some grief ever since Hen House left, and what's the city doing to get a grocery store back into Merriam? There's very little we can do short of providing incentives. We already provide good services. We provide good streets. The primary reason why someone hasn't moved one into the in-house site is because it's too large, it's too expensive, and it's in great need of remodeling, revision, update, and so on. And no one is going to bring their store in here and spend what it would take to get that thing up to snuff to run a grocery store. They just won't. And the place will sit empty, generally speaking, more unfortunately, probably for a long time, just based on the size. We have had some informal inquiries about would the city be interested in something like this, and I'm kind of like you. I'm generally not interested in it. Not just for a grocery store, because the payoff isn't going to probably be that good in terms of finances. Now, it's nice to have a grocery store to go to that'll be closer, but at what cost? I think that's the thing. But the 15 to 20 million, that would be part of a much larger development. So would we be interested in a larger development, which includes a grocery store to come here? That might be a question, but I think that gets us back to, well, would the average resident understand what our meaning is by asking that question? And I would say probably they wouldn't. I think, but here's what's going to happen. If we take the money out, they're going to be interested in it. We put the money in it, they're not going to be interested in it. So we really haven't gained anything. And maybe we might want to reconsider even having it in here because of that. I mean, so just something about anything else on the grocery store angle before we get back to Mr. Neal.
So just to make sure that I walk away with some direction on this, is the council's general intent to have that question taken out, or would you like me to work on rephrasing it somehow?
I think I don't want to overly lead the council, but if you have a question in there that says, would you like us to bring a grocery store to Merriam? I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to those questions. That's not going to help us.
I vote that we take it out of there.
If you want to make it hard to say, are you willing to use some of your tax money as an incentive to bring a grocery store here, so long as you don't put the amount in, that might bring us into a different realm. Someone says, well, it depends on how much. And it absolutely does depend on how much. But,
I think there's going to be an opportunity as well to use the survey, the polling data or polling tool that we're looking at for 2021 to get some additional information on this when we have a specific deal or we have more details about a project that we're working on.
Well, that would definitely be more accurate and focused. Mr. Neal?
I kind of lean towards trying to fix the question, financial incentives from the city, i.e., allocate some I mean, the comment that the mayor made, I think actually gets closer to it, the way he phrased it. But, somehow it would give us some idea, if we can figure out a way to say it, where how big of an issue is this with residents, statistically, selected group of residents, and how big of an issue is it with just with a few small people, knowing that there's going to be some cost with it. So that's,
Mr. DeBold.
Again, Scott DeBold. Again, after thinking about it, and again, I mentioned social media. This would be maybe more of a true documentation of, is there truly, because again, social media bounces around so darn much. But, and again, I think leaving the money out of it now that I think a little more about that, probably wouldn't be bad having that statistical input as to whether it is truly a concern for this community. So maybe just leaving it as, do you want one or not?
Bob Pate.
Yeah, Mayor. Also, question 17 does a follow-up to this as well, where it actually has a ranking of the at least 4 items as to the order of importance. So if I think it's important maybe that we do leave it in there, as Mr. DeBold said, in reference to at least finding out, is it 50% of our population wants a grocery store or not, or how strong is that desire, and maybe just throwing the number, not putting any number in there, will indeed, I think, give us some information. We might be surprised, Mayor. Maybe we only hear from the vocal people. Maybe it's not that big a deal. We do have a lot of grocery stores around us that they can go to, and maybe that's, now that's the further away we've been from being able to go to Hen House, maybe that's not as big a deal to people anymore as they've gotten used to going to some of our neighboring cities. But the follow up on question 17 of actually, is it, you rank that high? Was that going to be number 1 as far as importance, or if it's number 4 in order of importance? That would, I think, help to to establish the importance of a grocery store, and whether we really do need to do anything to get one here in Merriam. So,
Mayor, I think Chris has a comment.
This is Chris. I'm calling in. Sorry, I can't see anybody. Am I being heard?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hey, I think these are all great comments. I think these are all great ways to think about how how we frame the question and what type of an answer we get back and what type of priority we place on it. I think my only concern is that just even based on the conversations that we've had here, I mean, as Councilmember Pape said, if I could get it, if the city could get a grocery store into our community for only $100,000, I think we'd have a grocery store already. So I think really what we need to do is we really need to think about, this is a scope and scale question in terms of, I think the public needs to understand that to get a grocery store, it will be a significant investment. So finding a way and what that magic number is to figure out where people's tolerance is for incentivizing a grocery store, I think that's probably too much on a sliding scale to fit into the framework of how we're asking these questions. My suggestion would really be that we pull it off, because I do have concerns if we say, would you be okay with us incentivizing a grocery store, and we don't put a number? Well, John Q. Public likely is going to think in terms of their own purchasing power, and they're going to think, oh, well, $100,000 will do the trick, and $100,000 will not do the trick, you know. But so I think that the scale of how the public will think about the numbers might skew the way they answer it, and therefore may skew the priority they put on it. I really do think, listening to the conversations of the council, that this is a great question that we probably need to reserve for our poll software, or for our polling software next year, simply because I think the public really does need to understand more information than we can convey in that little bit of space we have. That would be my 2 cents, but we could clearly ask the question without the numbers in it, but I think people may not understand truly what it costs to bring that grocery store in, and we might get some data or some priority information that's just not accurate, or we won't be able to interpret as well as we would hope. So those are my comments.
Very good, thank you, Chris. Mr. Neal?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know how widespread the desire for a grocery store is. And, we're talking about the fact that you can't do a grocery store, without a development and the incumbent incentives associated with that. I get that. But I think if you put in some wording that clearly shows that it's going to take some city resources, but an unspecified amount, there's a lot of people that are going to react to, I don't want to spend any money, and we'll know who those people are, and we'll cull them out by their answers. But recognizing we don't know what the amount is right now, I don't think that it negates the value of having that question in general, because I just don't know how widespread this feeling is, and I think we should know that. That's just my view. So
I think there's another potential value that comes from this by virtue of the fact that the question is even in the survey. It indicates to those people filling it out that the city of Merriam obviously is concerned about the fact that we don't have a grocery store, and we're trying to gauge the fact that how many other people are concerned. Personally, I didn't go to Kim House. I go to closer ones in Shawnee. A lot of people I talked to didn't shop at Hen House because it was too expensive. That's one of the reasons why they aren't here anymore, because people didn't shop there because they were too expensive. But that's not to say we couldn't get something in there that would be more suited to the people who wants to shop there. And I guarantee you won't be as large as what the in-house site holds. Mr. Silver, you had your hand up the longest.
Yes, I don't know if you all remember, but when I first applied for this position and answered all of your questions in that forum, I had mentioned that I wanted to bring a store into Merriam, and that was me as a somewhat uneducated, and I'm only speaking of myself, I'm not speaking of any other citizens out there, somewhat uneducated citizen on this topic. Now that I'm on the council, I understand how difficult it is and has been for the council to get a grocery store to come into the city of Merriam. And so I think the question is valuable, even with the price in there, because I think, one, it alerts citizens how how much money it will take to bring a grocery store into Merriam. And second, it will maybe take some heat off of the city staff and the city council if we have difficulty bringing a grocery store into the city. It will infuse a little bit of reality of the topic into the minds of people who, like me, didn't know a whole lot about the subject.
Well, now that we've come full circle, we have to figure out where we're going to direct our staff to go. Ms. Hands, you want to?
I was going to just say, perhaps we pull it out of number 16 and we change our wording in number 17 to say, explore public incentives for getting a grocery store.
I think we could do that. The other thing I was going to suggest is pulling it out of 16. I think if we do a little bit of reformatting at the end of that page, we could add another standalone question in that area that maybe would allow us to give like another sentence of explanation to that. That would say something like, in order to bring a grocery store to Merriam, it will provide, it will require a significant investment of public tax dollars. How supportive would you be of that? And let people rank it individually. So that there's a little bit of context there. Not a ton, but more than what we're able to provide right now.
Well paid.
Yeah, Mayor. Well, I think Meredith and Mr. Engel both have indicated, and even a lot of people on the council have, that this is probably going to be a good follow-up question for us to actually do once we get our polling in place, next year. Maybe at least finding out or testing the waters on this, and with a follow-up question of really in depth, and maybe we even know more when we get to the polling portion at a later date or next year, where we can really give some background of what it's going to cost and those kind of things, and do a more in-depth analysis of how people really feel about it when they learn about the money. We don't know exactly what it's going to cost now, so I see that as an issue. And I think you were on target, Mayor, when you said, and at least I personally felt when I originally went to Meredith earlier today, I said, if I would answer this question, if I was to receive the survey entirely two different ways. I said, if you're telling me it's going to cost 15 to 20 million to incentivize somebody to come in here with a grocery store, I'm going to say, no way. I don't think it's worth that. But if it's going to be something substantially less, I don't know what that number would be. I think I'd be interested in trying to get a grocery store and maybe trying to help out in some way, either through TIF or CID or, we have options to try to incentivize, but we need to try to figure out some balance in there. And I do think it's going to take a follow-up question later on. I'm not opposed to just taking the number out entirely right now and just finding out, are you even interested or not? If we incentivize it and not put the number in it, but it's going to take a follow-up in the polling next year just to really find out, to nail down and figure out what people really are willing to, to put out in order to try to make that happen. So that's my take on it.
I'm sure Meredith's totally confused at this point.
Yeah, I am. Okay.
Glad to help you out.
Yeah. So maybe we could do just a quick poll of how many people want it in without a number and how many people want it out. Is that a place to start?
Well, should we rate? Well, ask the question and we'll see how many hands are raised.
Okay. Who would like this question to stay in without a number?
Three.
Three. Who would like this question taken out completely? Two.
Yeah, three.
Who would like this?
I'll throw mine in there, and that way we'll...
Four. Who would like this question pulled out and asked as a standalone question on the survey?
I think that would make sense.
Okay, so we're gonna work on that option.
With more context, right?
Yeah. So we'll add a question 18, or I guess add a question 17 where we'll provide some more context. And then we will keep the current question 17 so that people can still provide a ranking of those for you.
I think they'll make the question more valuable if you do that in terms of what we need for our purposes.
Great. And so we'll speak vaguely about numbers, but I do think it's important to say like a multi-million-dollar. I mean, are you comfortable with that phrasing so that they understand some scale to that? Okay.
David?
This is Dave Neal. Yeah, I think you should, if you're going to put multi-million dollars, you should probably say as part of a development project that may be larger than the grocery store, because I think that's really the key context.
Yep. Okay. I will rewatch this portion of the recording to make sure that I capture it appropriately, and then I'll provide an updated draft to everyone. I guess it won't be this Friday because of the holidays, but I'll send it out as soon as I get it, and then it will be included in the next packet. So that so if you get it and you have questions or concerns about it, if you can give me any feedback earlier on, so that I can have a clean version in the packet for you all to discuss as part of the next meeting, that would be great.
David?
It's David Neal again. Can you do the same thing for question 29 on the business survey?
Yep.
Obviously, I think there are some holes in that. That was going to be my additional follow-up and question. And I agreed with Councilmember Hands that some of our businesses, would be hard pressed to fit in some of the categories here. We have service businesses, repair businesses, and automobile dealerships, automobile repair. Where do you actually put those? I don't think you get good data with the particular set that you have here.
Yep.
So
I will definitely work with ETC on that.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other direction you need on this particular issue?
No.
Okay. Chris Hands.
Since Brian Neff was the one who asked about the business survey, I'm just really curious if this is getting at the kind of information he was wanting to get.
Yes, I think the business questions are excellent, and I'm very happy with this, so yes.
Good.
Great.
Very good. All right, well then, I guess we need a motion and a second to approve. Can we do that? We can't.
No, we'll just hold it till the next meeting.
All right, that's what I wanted. Okay, well then good luck with that. We'll hear how it goes in the future. We'll move down to the next item, which is consider approval of a resolution adopting the Kansas Homeland Security Region L Hazard Mitigation Plan. Chief McLaughlin, would you provide us with an update on this issue?
Good evening. Basically what this is back in 2019, or actually started before 2019, it was finally approved by FEMA and approved by county resolution. This is a mitigation plan where we identify as a region, which includes Johnson County, I believe Leavenworth County, I think Miami County's in there, where we identify areas that we know are potential hazard areas, like natural disaster type things, flooding, and so forth and so on. FEMA requires us to do this in our regions. I think it's every 5 years. And in order for us to be qualified for certain FEMA grants. The county ran lead on this, but the emergency management personnel from every city was involved in the decision making. This resolution was supposed to be approved in 2019, but at the time COVID started and they kind of got behind on everything through 2020, I mean. So they sent this to us last month, and last month said, hey, we forgot about this because of the COVID, and we really would like you guys to review it and approve it. There is everything that's in there. Captain Allen, who's our emergency management, is very familiar with, and there's really no issues with the city approving it. It doesn't force us to do anything that we're not already doing. So I'll answer any questions if you got them.
Chris Hands.
Would you say again who it was that worked on this from the department?
Captain Allen.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. So if there are no other questions, I'll need a motion in a second. Bob Pate?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd move the council approve a resolution adopting the Kansas Homeland Security Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Do I have a second? Chris Hands.
And I'll second it.
Motion and second made. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Knapp?
Aye.
Councilmember Neal?
Aye.
Councilmember Pape?
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers?
Aye.
Councilmember DeBold?
Aye.
Councilmember Hands?
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Very good. We're going to move to council items. First item is consider approval of an ordinance adopting the 2018 building and fire codes. Brian, you out there somewhere?
Yep, I am, Mayor.
Okay, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Brian Dyer, Community Development Director. This evening you have the second reading of the two ordinances to adopt the 2018 and fire and building codes. The first reading of this ordinance is back on October 26th, and we went a little bit past our normal protocol and put it the second reading 2 months later to give an opportunity for any public, any council members who had questions about the ordinances to reach out to staff and ask those questions. And during that time, we did have council members, Hands, Pape, and Neal reach out to staff with questions. We appreciate those questions. And also, Councilmember Pape spent a couple hours in the office going through those, and he found a number of editorial errors, things like O's that should be on. So we made those changes. So Ms. Hands also found a couple of editorial changes as well. So we appreciate that. So what you have before you this evening is two ordinances. At your meeting in October, the council asked staff to do a couple of things. One was to identify the differences in the building and fire code between Merriam's proposed ordinances and those adopted by Overland Park. What you have this evening, things outlined in yellow or highlighted in yellow, those are the differences between Merriam's and OP's ordinances. The other item that we did between October and today is that the council, during discussions in regards to requiring folks who are remodeling homes that they own but they don't live in yet, but do intend to live in into the very near future, do those folks need a Johnson County contractor's license to pull a building permit? Currently, they do not. In the ordinance that staff provided on October 26th, that was changed to require those folks to have a Johnson County contractor's license or to have somebody who's going to do the work to have a contractor's license. We provide you an ordinances this evening with a word highlighted in red and outlined and lined out. That word is current. So if council wishes to go back to the way we currently, wishes to continue the manner we currently do those types of situations, then simply council can adopt the building code ordinance with that word strucken out. That's all they need to do this evening. So really with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the council members may have.
Mr. Neal.
First of all, I want to thank the staff for really doing an exceptional job on what is undoubtedly a very long and tedious process. There are thousands and thousands of pages in the different code books, and I think there's been a lot of thought gone into this. I have asked some questions and gotten some good answers. And again, I appreciate that very much. I also appreciate the change that you mentioned to strike out the current, the word current for building homeowner permits for people that are trying to purchase a property and make it better before they move in. I think that's that's the way to go. So I appreciate that and your response from our last meeting to do that. And one of the other concerns that I've had all along about deviations from what the other jurisdictions are doing with regard to the code books is that coming from having pulled permits before and done projects across the county, it's good to have as much consistency as possible. So my concerns were that where we were different, and those questions have been answered where I had them, and I appreciate that. So I also want to say that I was assured that in one case where there is a requirement that is more stringent than than Overland Park, for example, and potentially depending upon what other cities do through the county, a contractor might show up with plans seeking a permit and then find out that they haven't included everything that's needed to pass in Merriam. And specifically, one of the examples would be arc fault circuit interrupters, which is way beyond what I want to talk about tonight. But I was pleasantly assured that if a contractor showed up and that not having that would be dealt with, at early and in an informal way so that the project could continue. So what I didn't want to see is somebody showed up with a set of plans, then get rejected. They've already got a crews lined up, ready to go, and they've got to go back to the architect and engineer and get new plans. And I've been assured that that's not the case. They'll just be informed of what the change needs to be, and it'll be informally handled. So I'm in support of this ordinance as it stands now. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, then I'll move for a motion in a second.
Mayor, if I may just real quick, briefly interject a little bit, because the one thing the motion sheet makes it look like there needs to be one motion. There is going to need to be two motions. And also like take a real quick opportunity to recognize Chief Diener and Chief Fire Marshal Mark Sweeney over at Overland Park Fire. Their staff has been incredibly helpful through this whole process. And again, Merriam's community development staff really appreciates all their help with this. So back to the ordinances, you have two ordinances, so there does need to be two motions. And then whoever makes a motion, just please be clear that you'd like that word, the word current removed as stated in the ordinances. So with that, Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Do we know how we're going to split these out? Simply
just do adopt the 2018 fire code ordinances and their amendments.
Okay. Bob Pape, you want to take a stab at the first one? If you're on mute.
There you go. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor. I'd move the council approve an ordinance adopting the 2018 building fire codes with the current struck out of the ordinance.
I think we need an amendment that you want just the building codes, right? Not the building and fire.
Yeah, Councilmember Pape, we need two different ones. So
yeah, I think it's only probably going to be found in the building code. Is that correct?
That is correct. So yes.
Yeah. Okay. The building code with the word current struck out.
Good.
I'd second that.
We have a motion and a second.
I'd like to second
that. Yes, we have a motion, and Mr. Neal has provided a second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Pape.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember DeBold.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Nath.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Very good. Second, Mr. Pape.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd move that the council approve an ordinance adopting the 2018 fire code.
And do we have a second? Ms. Hands?
And I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Pape.
Aye.
Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember DeBold.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Nath.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Very good. Next item on the agenda is city-funded grants presentation. Brian, would you please carry on with this?
Sure. Let me share my screen here real quick. I think everybody should see that. Okay. Again, Brian Dyer, Community Development Director. What we have presentation for this evening is to go over the new grants that the city has for 2021, and then do a year-end summary like we have the past couple of years on our 2020 grants. So first of all, the city funded grants for 2021. These are the new ones that we're planning on doing. Oops, sorry. The existing grants, real quick, these are ones that we've had for the past couple of years. The Residential Exterior Improvement Grant, just want to let everybody know we'll start taking applications for that on January 4th. The Block Party Grant, we'll be opening it up on April 1st, all hoping that by then we're getting close to the end of the pandemic. And then the Neighborhood Island Program that's operated by Public Works, that will be opening up on April 1st of 2021. So the new grants we have for 2021. The first one is Residential Sustainability. Again, I'll give a little more information about that here in just a second, but I want everybody to know that applications for that, we'll start taking those on January 4th. And then the Historic Downtown Merriam Exterior Improvement Grant. We're going to open up applications for that for March 8th. And really the reason for that is simply mostly staff workload. We typically have a lot of applications for the residential things in January, and then take a couple of months to get those all set up, lined up, get going, and then we'll be ready and prepared to handle the historic downtown grants we get from March 8th. So a little bit more detail about each one of these grants. I think you'll see that they're very similar in style and how we're going to do them to what the successful residential exterior grant has been. So for historical downtown, Council has allocated $50,000 for this program, a 20% reimbursement. Minimum reimbursement would be $1,000, the maximum would be $5,000. Minimum investment, this is a little bit higher than what the residential grant program is. Minimum investment would be $5,000 on this. And what's eligible for it? Exterior and landscaping improvements are eligible. Those improvements must meet the architectural design guidelines for the downtown district that was put in place. That shouldn't be put in place. That was the city, as part of a city study for downtown, had done back in October 18, 2002. I just want to make everybody a little bit comfortable what that is. That is something that I think everybody would look at and say, yes, that's what downtown is supposed to look like. Really what it is, the purpose of that is to kind of prevent improvements being done through this program that don't fit with the look and feel of our historical downtown. So again, painting, siding, things like that certainly is going to be allowable for it. But we did want to have some standards for the improvements. And then interior improvements are not eligible except for foundation and or floodproofing improvements. And I want to be very clear on the floodproofing improvements. These must meet FEMA standards and be designed by an engineer. So FEMA has very specific standards for what they consider to be floodproofing. So make sure that everybody understands that if someone wants to do a floodproofing project, it will have to meet those standards and be designed by a professional engineer. Here's the historic downtown Merriam area that we're looking at. And again, this stems from the work that was done in the early 2000s. Also was the outcome, sorry about that. The outcome was the result of that exterior grant program. The boundaries of this are on the west side would be Turkey Creek. On the east side is going to be I-35. And then on the north side It is 5646 Merriam Drive on the west side of Merriam Drive. That is right here. And then 5645 on the east side of Merriam Drive is right here. This building, I think folks may be somewhat familiar with it. It's kind of served as a warehouse. It's also the building where you can go and get bottled water at a dispensary right there in front. And then this building over here is what it's the one that's been the Doty's automotive repair building for a very, very long time. And then down here on the south, the southern boundary is 5937 Merriam Drive, or John Fire's electronic business repair building. So that is the southern boundary of it. And the other new grant that we have for next year for 2021 is the Residential Sustainability Grant. Again, council's allocated $20,000 towards this program. It's a 20% reimbursement. A minimum reimbursement is $500, a maximum is $2,500. The minimum investment will be a $2,500 investment done by the property owner. It can be used in conjunction with the Residential Exterior Improvement Grant. And what that means is somebody could potentially bring in 2 applications on January 4th for us. One for, say, siding and windows, and one for solar panels. How that can be worked together to do some pretty significant improvements on a residential home, and with pretty good input from the city in regards to the grant. Then the eligible projects include a home energy audit, and it's called a blower door audit. That's really a very advantageous audit. It really narrows in and hones in on what a homeowner could do to improve the efficiency of their home. Solar panel, power, wind panel, power, energy efficiency HVAC and or hot water or water heater, energy efficient windows and or doors, insulation, geothermal heating and cooling, and duct sealing. For things like the HVAC systems, the water heater systems, windows and doors and insulation, we have some specific guidelines that we put together, and it comes out of the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code. And we have sheets that we can give to residents that really spell out and really drill down to the specific details that they need to know when they go to look for these types of systems and go to purchase these systems, participate in the program. We also are going to stress very much that a homeowner, before they do any, if they are in this program and before they make any payments or investments in any of these systems, that they speak with staff. We'll have our building official look through it to make sure that what they're wanting to do does meet those 2018 energy guidelines. So again, we want to make sure that residents participating in the program reach out to staff as much as possible, because we are a little concerned that resident may think what they're getting is considered an energy efficient, say, window or door, when it doesn't meet those guidelines. So those are the 2 new programs we have coming up for 2021. Be happy to answer any questions at this point in time before I get into the recap the 2020 year. I don't see any questions, so I will go on to 2020 and go through first exterior grant program. Not surprising, this was a challenging year for that program. Residents face the same issues that everybody else doing construction this year did. COVID-19 did interrupt and kind of delay a number of some residents' projects. But we worked with them. I'm going to show you here in just a second how we worked with them to try to make sure that their project still is going to have be eligible for the grant. So in a review, you all have seen this a number of times now. Folks that can participate in it, or properties that can participate in this program, are non-apartment residential buildings. Therefore, the programs for exterior improvements. Minimum investment from the property owner is $2,500. City reimbursed 20% of the cost of improvements up to $2,500, and the program was funded at $50,000 for this year. Again, this gives a summary of what all is eligible for it, the program. This is the grant locations. Again, a very widespread throughout the city. It wasn't clustered in any one area or neighborhood. So pretty good disbursement of the projects throughout the city.
Mm-hmm.
Type of improvements, again, mirrors what we have seen the past couple of years. Roofing, siding, and painting and windows were the biggest things. Biggest number of improvements, along with landscaping, driveways, sidewalks, and fences were the next big. And then we did have one accessory structure be constructed in the program for this year. Now, this is a program summary. We had 34 homes in the program. 31 of those homeowners have been reimbursed. We have 3 homes or 3 homeowners projects that we've pushed to 2021 because of COVID. These are projects that because of supply, because perhaps a contractor wasn't able to get materials and items to finish the project. These projects haven't been able to be finished in time to be paid out of the 2020 program. So what we did in order to maximize, to make sure that we expended all the $50,000, is we have taken those 3 projects and essentially pushed them to 2021. So these 3 projects will be the first ones funded in the 2021 program. So again, the whole idea was to keep people whole, while at the same time making sure that we maximized and fully spent out the $50,000 in the program. So in total, we had 45 applications. We had a couple of applications that were still on the waiting list that we ran out of funding for, that we couldn't get to, and then a couple of other applications that were withdrawn or perhaps denied. Again, by pushing those 3 homes, we were able to get to a reimburse $50,000 to expend all the program. Now, I will say with a little bit of caveat, we have one last project that we're waiting for receipts on that. It's a project that the homeowner is looking to get $2,500 or just about $2,500 for the project. So that is, as soon as we get those receipts, we'll be able to reimburse them and officially expend all the $50,000. Average reimbursement was $1,600. That's about $300 less than it was last year. So smaller projects this year. Total improvements. So these are total improvements that were done. Was almost $290,000. So again, getting a lot of bang for our buck, as you can show by the average average amount of improvement that was done, which is $9,300. And then kind of my favorite number is the amount of private funds that were leveraged for $1 city's funds. So leveraged $5.79 for every $1 of city funds in the program. Again, this number is a little bit lower. It's indicative of smaller projects this year than what we've seen in the past couple of years. So just a couple of examples. I won't go through every project we have, but some of the examples. This was over on, I believe, 57th Street. Let me look here real quick, where a homeowner redid the driveway. So again, previous picture, you see the driveway shelling out. I'm sorry, 5000 block of Farley Street was shelling out, and then replaced the driveway. Again, nice improvement, definitely improved the looks of the neighborhood and the value of the home. This is probably one of my favorite projects we've done in the last 3 years of this. This is on 5000 block of Booker previous, and then this is what the home looks like now. So again, a great example of the program and the good it's doing out there in the community. So with that, I'm going to move on to the 2020 Landscape Island Program. Again, this is a program that is funded, a program that is administered by Public Works. But since I have the floor here with the grant program, we're going to, Jim McDonald and I work together to also put this also in this presentation. So for 2020, we did 3 Landscape Island grants, 2 over at the West Vernon Place subdivision, 1 in Sherwood Forest. Total amount funded was $1,125, and aren't anticipating any changes for 2021. Here are the projects. This is the Burnham Street traffic circle. This is before, this is after. The project removed existing plants, installed a decorative brick enclosure, a flagpole, solar lights, and mulch. Very nice. And then this is the Burnham Street cul-de-sac, so just down the street from the traffic circle. The project worked to remove dead plants and install mulch. And then the last one, Sherwood Lane, over north of Robin Hood Drive. This was the installation of a maple tree. It's a little hard to see, but it's sitting right back here. So again, improvement to the landscaping in Sherwood Forest. So with that, city staff just like to say thank you for the opportunity to do these grants. We think it's a great thing, particularly in community development, where a lot of times we're the enforcement agency. This is a great opportunity for our code enforcement officers and community development staff to be out there helping people fix perhaps their code violation and just generally upgrade their homes. So again, community development as well as public works staff appreciate and thank you for the opportunity to do these grants. So happy to answer any questions about anything, any of those presentations. And I'm going to unshare my screen so I can see everybody.
Chris, you have a question?
This is Chris Hansen. No, I don't have a question. I just think that this has been such an exciting thing for us to do. And it's really too bad we can't quantify public goodwill, because I think it really does help us. Thank you.
I will say just anecdotally, again, we receive positive comments from all the folks that participate in this program. So staff would echo that sentiment.
Bob Peg?
Yeah, I was going to say, Mayor, I think Mr. Dyer said that those were West Vernon islands. Those are actually Vernon Place Islands.
Yes, yeah, did I? It is Vernon Place. Sorry about that. That was my mistake.
Yeah, no problem. I just have personal interest in that one.
Yeah. As soon as you said that, I was like, whoops, I did didn't mean to put the West on there. That was my fault. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? I echo the good words. Obviously, we strive to find ways that we can get back to our citizens in a way that's fair and also improves our community. And this is a great example of that. So thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. I think we're at that point where we ask if there are any staff. Nope, we got community development update. Is that right? No, wait a minute.
We also have the finance report.
I'm sorry, monthly finance report. I'll move my sheet down here. Donna, are you there?
I can see her.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry. I'm on my iPad and that's a little different. So just wanted to say that we have not yet received the sales tax numbers for November, which would be for September sales. I should be getting those probably tomorrow or maybe Wednesday. And hopefully those will continue to be good numbers. If you took a look at the financial report, you would see that, again, sales tax were actually trending just a little above what we budgeted, and that's great. We are still a little behind for last year, but all in all, with COVID, doing good. On franchise fees, if you may have noticed that the current month actual is just under 26,000, which is much less than typical. And the reason for that is we didn't receive our electric franchise tax until actually the first couple of days of November, so they weren't included in there. So if they had been, that number would have been closer to 120,000, and we would have, the amount that we were under budget would have been a lot smaller. So we're just continuing to monitor sales tax and all our other revenues. Look forward to the next city council meeting to having a more comprehensive annual report on how we think we're going to end up for the year, and look forward to presenting that. So if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Chris Hands.
Yes, it's me again. And I really miss not being able to see Donna's beautiful face. Just saying. I would like to have a refresher on what the other categories are. We have auto sales and we have Merriam Town Center. What's in other?
it is generally anything that's not included in those, which would be hotels. It is a very relatively small percent of our sales tax, and I am drawing a little bit of a blank on what all is in that. It would have some of the other smaller automotive dealers and repair shops would be in there. Utilities, the amount that those have sales tax on them would be in there. And I would be happy tomorrow to get you a list of the other type of businesses that are in there.
It's just a surprise because they are more, they're higher. And so I'm trying to figure out who is it that's doing better than what we anticipated.
Where does IKEA fit in?
And now IKEA would be over in the Merriam Town Center, I believe. Actually, part of what's in that other sales tax that is part of the reason it's doing so well is the use tax, which would be like whenever you have something delivered to your house, like your Amazon or Chewy.com, those types of businesses, we've seen quite a bit of growth in this year as well for obvious reasons.
Wow, that's really good to know. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Mr. Pate?
Yeah, Mayor, this technically isn't a question, but I would just like to have to shout out, because I know a lot of people don't have a chance to look at the financials as we have, but speaking as a previous department head, I appreciate and applaud all the efforts of our department heads to actually curtail their expenditures and hold them to a minimum in the event of COVID this year, and not knowing what our revenues were going to be. They have held those things down, and I know how hard that is to do. And I just wanted to give kudos to the department heads for the job they've done in trying to reduce their expenditures to come in line with our revenues. That's it.
Anybody else?
Councilmember Hands, next board meeting, I'll be staying at the office to do, and so you'll be able to see my face then.
Oh, good. That makes me feel so much better. I do have one more question. So we talked about setting up that new fund, and are you calling it the grant fund instead of a COVID fund or whatever? That was your last comment on the finance page.
Yes, we did just name it a generic grant fund.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And hope that trend continues. Brian, you want to tell us about the community development updates?
Sure, just have a few updates for you all this evening. First, to let you know that the Irene B. French Community Building demolition is completed. We got the final bill and our invoice from Denton Excavating on it. There was a couple of change orders on it. The first change order was that there was an additional sewer disconnect. It ended up being there was 2 sewer lines into the building. And so that was an additional change order. And then also they found 2 large cistern tanks, interestingly enough, underneath the stage area. We couldn't figure out what they were for, but we did have to have those pumped out. They did have fluids in them, so we did have the fluids removed and had the cistern tanks completely removed and backfilled. So the final invoice for it was $107,915. So again, that project is completed. And again, under budget by quite a bit of what the original amount was budgeted for that project. So
the cistern that you found in front, was it one of the real old one, like could have been there before the 1930s building was built?
It's tough to speculate, because again, they found 2 of them, and they were right next to each other underneath the stage area. So it's possible that the first one that was so the 2 cisterns were sitting next to each other in the east-west configuration. So maybe that the first one was with the original building or prior to the expansion that built the stage. And then when they built the stage, they added the cistern on further to the west of it. But again, it really was a head scratcher for all of us. Really unknown as to what specifically for. Typically the cisterns back in the day were mainly to harvest rainwater for water purposes. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Going on, had a comp plan meeting, comp plan advisory committee meeting that was on Wednesday, and that went very well. Looked at 2 new chapters, transportation chapter and what they're promoting prosperity chapters reviewed. Those are all online if folks would like to look at the Merriam2040.org website. Again, we're on schedule to have our joint City Council Plan Commission meeting at the first Wednesday of January, where the consultants will have hopefully 80 to 90% completed draft for a presentation to everybody. And then after that, we'll be coming out presentation to Plan Commission, City Council. After that, we'll be rolling out to public for public input. And we're still looking at a March meeting for Plan Commission as well as City Council for both bodies to review that plan. And then the last thing I have is just a real brief update on the Reed parking lot. They have curbs and gutters that have been poured. So we're all still, they've not given us a timeline. So this is simply staff timeline from what our observations. So we're hoping that if the weather holds, asphalt plants don't close, that perhaps they'll be able to get that done by the end of the year. But again, that is purely from staff. They've not shared their timeline with us, but we did, like I said, saw the curb and gutters poured, which is always an indication that they're hoping to get the asphalt poured for the parking lot. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but other than that, that's my presentation for the evening.
Any questions from anyone? Okay, thanks again, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor.
Chris has fled the building, so to speak, or the state maybe. I think he was on his way, headed off to the Rocky Mountains or something. So I'll ask Meredith, do you have any staff items this evening?
The only staff item I have is reminding everyone that City Hall and the police department lobby are closed this Thursday and Friday. And you can check online for the community center hours because of the Thanksgiving holiday.
Very good. Well, as again, I'll repeat my wishes for everyone to have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. And I'll entertain a motion and a second to adjourn. Scott.
Mayor, I assume that we adjourn. I'm sorry. You caught me off guard. I was just trying to turn my computer on.
Okay. Well, I want to see if you're awake. And Bob Pape. But Bob, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, you're on mute, Bob. There you go.
Sorry, I'll second. You think I'd learn, but I'm a slow learner. Sorry. I'll second.
Someday we won't have to worry about all this stuff. Let's hope.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See you all later.
Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Bye.